Welcome, everyone, to Farming Among the Stars. Today, we're going to be talking about space agriculture. Growing food in space. Pretty wild concept, right? I'm Rex, your host, and with me is Regina, our space expert. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Regina, first things first, why even bother with space agriculture? It's not like we're going to be zipping over to the Martian grocery store for a quick veggie run, right?
Yeah, it's all about self-sufficiency. We can't rely on shipments from Earth if we want to think about having long-term settlements. On Mars, the moon, further out, the costs, the logistics, the delays would be a recipe for disaster.
Right, it's like the ultimate off-grid living. But instead of a cabin in the woods, we're talking habitat on Mars. So that makes sense. But how do you even start to grow food in space? I mean, there's no soil-limited water radiation everywhere. Feels like an impossible task.
It's a huge challenge, no doubt. That's where human ingenuity comes in. Scientists and engineers are working on some really cool solutions like hydroponics and aeroponics. These are systems that use nutrient-rich solutions instead of soil, so they're perfect for space where resources are limited.
Wait, so no soil at all? Like those vertical farms we're seeing pop up in cities. Are we taking inspiration from space to grow food here on Earth?
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how these innovations we're developing for space are finding applications right here on Earth.
Fascinating. So we've got these high-tech gardens, but what about sunlight? Plants can't exactly sunbathe on a spaceship or a Martian base, right?
You're right, and that's where we use LED lighting. We're essentially recreating sunlight in a controlled environment. These LED systems mimic the specific light that plants need for photosynthesis.
Wow. So we're bringing the power of the sun indoors. That's pretty cool. But with all this tech and controlled environments, how do we manage resources in a closed system like a spaceship or a habitat?
Well, that's where closed-loop systems come into play. Think of it as a self-contained mini ecosystem where every resource is carefully managed and recycled. Plants play a huge role in this. They help purify the air and the water, and then we reuse that purified water to nourish more plants.
So it's all about creating this sustainable cycle, like a mini version of Earth's natural systems, but with a space twist.
Exactly.
That's ingenious. We've talked about soil and light, but we haven't touched on water. Mars is pretty much a desert, right? Where are we going to find all the H2O we need?
Well, you're right, water is essential. And Mars does present a big challenge there. The surface is very dry. But there is evidence of water ice trapped beneath the surface. And at the poles, extracting and purifying that water will be critical for long-term settlements.
It's like a Martian treasure hunt for the most valuable resource of all.
In a way, yeah.
And even if we find water, conserving every drop is going to be crucial, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's another area where those closed-loop systems are so important. By constantly recycling and reusing the water, we can make sure that every drop is used as efficiently as possible.
Oh, I like it. Waste not, want not. Martian mantra. But all this talk of high-tech solutions and resource management, it makes me picture robots tending to space crops. Is that just science fiction or is that a real possibility?
Not science fiction at all. Automation and robotics are going to be super important for space agriculture. Time and human labor are super valuable on a Martian colony. So having those autonomous systems to monitor the plants, adjust conditions, maybe even harvest the crops, it'll be a huge advantage.
So robots might actually be our future interplanetary farmers.
Quite possibly.
Okay, before we get carried away with our robot farmhands, let's bring it back to Earth for a sec. You mentioned earlier that some of these space farming techniques are already being used here.
Yeah.
In urban agriculture, can you give us some examples?
Sure. One of the biggest ones is vertical farming. Growing crops in stacked layers in controlled environments. These vertical farms can produce a lot more food per square foot compared to traditional farming. Plus, they use less water and can be located right in cities, so we reduce transportation costs and emissions.
So it's like bringing the farm to the city with a high-tech, space-inspired twist. That's incredible. I love how this quest to grow food beyond Earth is leading to innovations that benefit us here at home.
It really shows how everything's connected. What we learn from space exploration can often have unexpected benefits in other areas.
It's amazing. So space agriculture is not just about keeping astronauts fed. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible and finding solutions that could help solve some of the biggest challenges facing our planet.
Exactly. And it's that potential for discovery, innovation, and collaboration that makes this field so exciting.
I agree. Space agriculture is truly a fascinating field. And it has the potential to shape the future of humanity, both on and off Earth.
Absolutely. And, we can't talk about space agriculture without mentioning Elon Musk, he hasn't given us like a detailed plan for farming on Mars, but his whole vision for Martian colonies that, self-sustaining ones, tells us a lot.
Yeah, he's definitely not shy about wanting to make humans a multiplanetary species.
Yeah.
And with his goal of 1 million people living on Mars, space agriculture's got to be a big part of that.
Right. You can't exactly have a city on Mars without figuring out the food situation.
So how does he see this all working? Martian farming? I mean,
Well, if we look at what he's done with Tesla and SpaceX, we can bet technology is going to play a huge role. Think about it. Tesla's all about solar power, right? Sustainable energy for Martian farms. Then you've got SpaceX with all their advancements in robotics. You could have these highly automated systems that don't need a lot of human labor.
so basically all his companies are like coming together
Yeah.
to create this sustainable future on Mars. Solar-powered robot farms under a dome. It's like some kind of a movie.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it does sound pretty futuristic.
But that's the thing with Musk, right? He's always pushing the limits.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So right now he's focused on these enclosed environments for farming on Mars. But long term, could he be thinking even bigger, like terraforming the whole planet?
Terraforming Mars, that's definitely a long-term goal, maybe centuries away, if it's even possible.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild idea.
But it shows you how ambitious he is. He really believes we can change a planet to make it more like Earth.
It's definitely bold. But while we wait for Mars to maybe turn into a second Earth, what's happening right now with space agriculture? You mentioned some experiments earlier. Are we actually growing food in space?
Oh, yeah, definitely. NASA has this cool system on the International Space Station called Veggie. They've successfully grown all sorts of things, lettuce radishes, even zinnias.
Zinnias.
Yeah, they're flowers.
So astronauts are having fresh salads in space.
Uh-huh, pretty much. It's not just about the food, though. Fresh food can actually help astronauts psychologically, especially when they're up there for long periods. It gives them a connection to Earth, improves their well-being.
Makes sense. A little taste of home in the vastness of space. It's amazing that we're already at this point. Growing food in space is actually happening.
It is a big milestone. And it's not just NASA either. Back in 2019, China sprouted cotton seeds on the moon.
On the moon.
Yeah, it was part of their Change Forward mission.
That's huge. Was that the first time anything's ever been grown on another celestial body?
It was a big achievement for sure. It showed that plants can actually sprout, even in that harsh lunar environment.
That's incredible. So space agriculture is really moving forward.
It is.
And it's not just about feeding astronauts, right? There are benefits that go way beyond that.
You got it. The technology and the knowledge we gain from space agriculture, it's inspiring all sorts of innovations in different fields, for example. Those closed-loop life support systems, they're essential for long space missions. Well, they're now being adapted for things like disaster relief and for remote areas here on Earth that have limited resources.
So trying to grow food in the most extreme environment we can imagine is helping us solve problems here at home. It's like this reminder that space exploration, it's not just about pushing boundaries, it's about finding solutions.
Yeah, and inspiring innovation.
And ultimately improving life on Earth.
Absolutely.
But of course, with any big endeavor like this, there are always challenges.
Definitely.
What are some of the biggest hurdles facing space agriculture today?
One of the things we're still working on is figuring out how microgravity affects plant growth long term. Plants behave differently in space. Their roots grow in all sorts of directions. Their leaves develop weirdly. Even their overall growth patterns change.
So it's like we're learning how to garden all over again. But this time in zero-G, what about radiation? Is that still a big concern for space crops?
Oh, definitely. Space is full of these high-energy cosmic rays that can really mess with plant DNA, affect how they grow and reproduce, so shielding them from radiation is super important.
So how do we do that?
Well, scientists are looking at different things.
Yeah.
Special shielding materials, even genetically modifying plants to make them more resistant to radiation.
Wow, genetically modified space crops. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Haha, a little bit.
Ah,
But it makes sense if we want plants to actually thrive in space.
right. Makes sense. Any other big challenges on the horizon for space agriculture?
Well, another thing is space and energy. On a spacecraft or a habitat, you only have so much room and so much power. So designing these farming systems to be super efficient and compact, that's a constant challenge.
So it's like the ultimate minimalist gardening challenge.
Uh-huh.
Doing more with less.
Exactly.
But beyond the technical stuff, I imagine there's some ethical things to think about with space agriculture.
Oh, for sure. As we start to rely more and more on space agriculture, the stakes get higher. Any problem with the system could have some serious consequences for astronauts or colonists.
So we got to make sure these systems are not only efficient, but also super reliable. No pressure. Right.
Right?
Any other ethical concerns we should be thinking about?
Well, one big one is planetary protection. We're bringing Earth-based organisms to other planets, so we need to be really careful not to contaminate them with our microbes.
So we got to explore, but also protect.
Really.
It's a delicate balance. But with all these challenges, there's also this huge opportunity for innovation and discovery.
Oh, absolutely.
What part of this whole space agriculture thing gets you the most excited?
That's a tough one. I think what really fascinates me is the potential to create these self-sustaining ecosystems beyond Earth. Imagine entire cities on Mars, powered by renewable energy, with these thriving indoor farms providing fresh food for everyone. It may seem like science fiction, but it's getting closer and closer to reality.
It's an amazing vision, a future where we can live on other planets.
And learn things that can benefit us here on Earth.
Exactly. Well, that wraps up our exploration of space agriculture. From hydroponics to terraforming Mars, we covered a lot of ground today. And it's clear that this quest to grow food beyond Earth, it's not just about feeding astronauts. It's about inspiring innovation, tackling global challenges, and ultimately shaping the future of humanity. Thanks for listening, everyone, and be sure to subscribe for more exciting deep dives into the world of science and technology. Until next time, keep looking up and never stop exploring.